Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Monatui, coach of the Tampa Bay Luxrays, and today I'm bringing you guys something a little bit different. Not really that different, but we are going to be going over our Pokemon Premier League off-season boogaloo, off-season league fun thing that's going on. Basically, the PPL is over, and it's going to be a few months before it kicks back up again, but a lot of us wanted to try out the new mons in draft format, so we decided to make our own little off-season league thingy with about the same number of teams, maybe a few less people, and it's going to be super fun and awesome. We, instead of doing a price system, decided to do a free draft, which I think is smart considering all the mons just came out. We don't feel like doing full prices for mons that literally just came out and we don't know how they're going to do. Or we don't know how good a lot of them are and whatever else, but with that being said, we each drafted our teams. Again, it was a free draft, so you could pick whatever you wanted as long as it was still there and nobody else had it. And then at the end of the draft, you would select one mon on your roster which was allowed to use a Z-move. We didn't want to allow Z-moves across the entirety of the, like any mon could use a Z-move because that's very, very unpredictable and a lot of people see it as a little bit uncompetitive, and I get why. So at the end, we just decided to allocate one mon could use any Z-move that it wanted, and we will get into what I decided for that, and we'll get into the entire roster. So without further ado, let's start off with my round 1 pick. So I actually ended up getting the second spot overall, which was great because there are a lot of really, really good new stuff. There's a lot of really good new stuff that I wanted to pick up, and this was probably the top on my list, and thankfully it fell to me. And that also, by the way, we're going off post-Pokebank, so you can get anything from pre-Pokebank to post-Pokebank, doesn't matter, because it's all on Showdown, so it all works like that. But first thing that I decided to get, which I was super stoked to get, because it is ridiculously good, is Tapu Lele. So Tapu Lele, I'll preface this mon by saying, if you're trying to run like a serious league, just ban this thing. It's way too good. It's just genuinely way too good. First of all, these stats are really solid. 95 is a very good speed tier for a wall breaker, as well as a very good choice scarf user, choice specs user, whatever. Bulk is okay. Def isn't amazing, but then its Def is pretty solid. Like Scarf Magnezone's Flash Cannon does not knock it out. Like Scarf Gengar's Shadow Ball does not knock it out, which is very impressive. 130 is really strong. And sometimes you can afford to go modest as well, but suppose you're timid, this is what you'll hit. And the thing that makes this thing super extra broken is its ability in Psychic Surge. Also, there's telepathy, but obviously that's useless in singles. So, Psychic Surge, as you can see, on switch-in, this Pokemon summons Psychic Terrain. And what Psychic Terrain does is it blocks all priority, and it boosts all of the power of Psychic moves. So, you basically slap on like a choice specs onto this thing, and you now have max special, 130 base special attack, Psychic Terrain boosted, choice spec, stab, Psychic, and there is nothing that wants to switch on this happily. Spec Psychic, if you are not immune to it, will 2-KO almost anything. Like a 2-KO's regular Magnezone, which has very solid Sped F. 2-KO's Skarmory, unless it's running like max Sped F, and even that it might. And not only that, but it has a really good way to hit Dark types, the only thing that's immune to it, in secondary Fairy Stab. Like, that's really solid, unless your dual typing is like Steel or Poison. You are not going to appreciate this hit, or you're going to take this hit, like that hit super effectively, and it's just gonna hurt. Even the mons that are like part Steel or part Poison or whatever, they don't necessarily appreciate switching in on this thing. This thing does like 40% to Assault Vest, Alolan Muck with Moonblast. It's absolutely absurd. And not only that, but it also has really good coverage moves for the mons that it can't hit super hard. Like, for example, if your opponent has Celesteela that resists both of your dual stabs, it gets access to Thunderbolt. If your opponent has, like, there really are not that many moves. If your opponent has a Chansey, you can slap on Psyshock and then easily get a 2-KO on that thing. That's not how you spell that word at all. Psyshock, yeah, you can slap Psyshock on there and easily 2-KO them with specs. It gives access to Energy Ball, Grass Knot if you want it. Nature's Madness is also really cool. You can run like a Taunt Nature's Madness set and then break down very bulky mons like Cresselia or like Spidef Mew if you don't want to run Shadow Ball, or if you don't want to run a choice item. It also gets access to Calm Mind if you want to be like a setup variant, like if you want to beat some of those bulky Psychic types that can possibly switch into you. Gets access to Focus Blast for other Steel types like Heatran or something like that. It's just so ridiculous. It's way too good. It's so good. And the other thing that I haven't touched on too much is, again, the blocking priority thing. Some of the best ways to beat something like this that's relatively slow, even if it had a choice scarf, like, it doesn't matter how fast this thing is, if priority is on the other team, it's not that necessarily big of a threat, because, like, a bullet punch from Sizzler knocks it out. Brave Bird from, well, it used to knock it out until Talonflame started to be bad, but I'm also going to get rid of this because we don't need to see battleships. It's irrelevant. There we go. Yeah, this is a much better sight. Excellent. Sorry. You're able to block priority, so things like Bullet Punch just don't hit you. Aqua Jet do not hit you. Extreme Speed, they don't touch you. So if you're Choice Scarf and your opponent doesn't have a Choice Scarfer that outspeeds it, you're not going to take any damage unless you allow it to. And even then, again, it's very bulky on the special side, so if you're, and pretty much all priorities on the physical side other than Vacuum Wave, which this thing quad resists anyway. So it's just really, really good in, like, every single aspect. There are very few things that actually want to switch into this thing. I think, again, like, Spadef Cresselia can kind of switch into it, but then, again, you can run, like, a Taunt Nature's Madness set, or you can just run a Taunt set with Shadow Ball to wear it down, and then Cresselia can't do anything back to you. Like, same thing with Mew, unless it's running, like, Gunk Shot or something along those lines. It's just so good. Again, if you're running, like, a serious, competitive, you wanted to make it a balanced league, just ban this thing. It's way too good. We only allowed it because we wanted to try out a bunch of the new stuff. And, yeah, Tapu Lele is among that new stuff, so we decided to allow it. But again, it's just way too good for, like, everything. So good. There's so many good things with this thing. And it even supports, like, not having priority will support some of the mons later on that we'll get into, and you'll see why. But anyway, I picked Tapu Lele with my first pick. It took a while to get back to me, obviously. I was second in the draft, so I got my second pick, and then I waited for a while, and this mon ended up coming back to me. And this is actually another really, really solid Pokemon, and another mon that I was really looking forward to using, because it's just so much fun. It's incredibly strong. Some people may see it as broken. I'm not necessarily convinced that it's going to be broken in draft format until it's used. Like Tapu Lele, I can tell you right now, probably going to be broken. This mon, I'm not entirely sure, but it's really, really good either way, and that mon is Kartana. So Kartana is an interesting one. Obviously, the thing that stands out the most about it is its ridiculous attack stat of 181. It goes up to 461 if you're Jolly, which is absolutely absurd. That is an incredible attack stat. Plus, with Beast Boost, you are able to raise your attack every time you get a kill. So this also functions as a very good Choice Scarfer, because there are times you can just pick off a kill and then you can just sweep the rest of your opponent's team with Leaf Blade or with Smart Strike or whatever, just because you are that strong. Even if they resist, it's going to be taking a lot from this. Now, despite its really, really high attack, one of the reasons why I don't think this thing is necessarily broken is because it doesn't get amazing coverage. It gets Leaf Blade for stab, and it also gets Smart Strike, so unfortunately it doesn't get Iron Head. That would have been even better because you can flinch things, and it's extra strong, but mostly the flinching part. It also gets some good coverage in Sacred Sword, Knife Slash, Psycho Cut, so it's kind of said its coverage is kind of bad. It's not necessarily bad, but it's relatively limited. It gets X-Scissor as well. But that's pretty much all it has going for it. Like, it has this coverage, X-Scissor, something like that, Psycho Cut, and that's about it as far as coverage goes, which kind of hinders its, or not necessarily hinders, but is kind of disappointing when you have an attack stat this big, but if its coverage was any better, it'd be way too good. So at least with this, you can wall it with some bulky steals with a dual typing, you know, like Psychic Steel types. Bulky ones at least can switch into Sacred Sword, even though they don't want to take Knife Slash, but the big thing about this thing is it's so frail on the special side. 59 HP is bad, and then 31 Spadef is absolutely terrible. Has very good Phys Def. Can take a decent number of physical hits relatively well, but its Spadef is absolutely terrible. Like, it doesn't matter what, like what mon you're facing. If they have HP Fire, they will probably kill you. Like, I'm pretty sure HP Fire from Carbink OHKOs this thing, which is hilarious. But with that being said, it's still extremely, extremely strong. Like I said, Beast Boost is still an amazing ability. So what some people like to do with Kartana is actually run this set right here, which is 19 IVs in attack and a minus attack nature being timid, so that your speed stat is higher than your attack stat. And what this means is every time you get a kill, your Beast Boost will activate for your speed and not your physical attack, which can definitely come in handy in some situations, because one of the ways you beat Kartana is with Scarfers, or things like that, things that can outspeed you, like a Scarf Gengar, for example, outspeeds you, knocks you out with Shadow Ball, something along those lines, even though Scarf Gengar does outspeed you. But things that outspeed you in general, like a Raikou or a Gengar or like a Jolteon, something along those lines. Choice Scarfers that are less than 109, like like a Choice Scarf Victini or something along those lines. They can all outspeed you and knock you out, but if you get a Beast Boost for speed, you will be able to outspeed them and be able to hit them very hard, because even though you're running a minus attack nature and you're running 19 IVs in attack instead of full, and you're completely uninvested, you still will hit hard with the 347 attack stat. That still is very solid. That outpaces, or that's stronger than a lot of other physical attackers when they're max invested, so that's still nothing to laugh at. And again, getting that speed boost can come in very big handy in certain situations, so that's that. That is a little bit more situational though. I like to run the just the full-on attack set because it's so ridiculously strong, and I love it. But Kartana does have a couple other things going for it. Like I said, it can run Swords Dance, which is very nice. It's very good against bulkier teams because with that ridiculous attack stat, you're going to hit things crazy hard. You also have access to Defog, which is very nice. You can get rid of hazards on your side of the field, as well as obviously your opponents, but you will be able to get rid of them on your side of the field, which is very nice. Also gets access to recovery and synthesis, which can come in handy in certain situations, which is always very nice. And that's basically it. It doesn't have very good special attack. Like, it does get Vacuum Wave, but with 59 special attack, you're really not going to be doing much to anything, so that's probably not worth it. And again, it's a relatively straightforward Pokemon, but it does have a couple surprise options, like I said, the Timid set, as well as maybe like SD or Scarf. But overall, it's just a very solid Pokemon. What's kind of nice is these two weaken each other's checks for them. Like, the best thing to switch into either of these things are typically like Steel types, like I mentioned, or even like bulky Psychic types. Bulky Psychic types do not want to necessarily take on Kartana, because Leaf Blade will hit them if they're just a pure Psychic type, and then has Sacred Sword, as well as Night Slash to weaken them, as well as Tapu Lele obviously has Shadow Ball. And then if you're switching into Steel type, Tapu Lele has Focus Blast that I can kind of rely on, even though it's relatively inaccurate, but Kartana has 100% accurate Sacred Sword, and even though it's on stab, that's still a base 90 attack coming from a very powerful attack stat. So these guys can weaken each other's counters for each other, which is really cool, and I really like that synergy going on there, because as soon as the Kartana especially is a mon that like your opponent probably has like one or two switch-ins for it, but as soon as it's gone, it can just clean through you. If Tapu Lele can break through that one mon by forcing it to stay in, otherwise they have to sack off another mon, then Kartana can just clean through whoever's team that is, which is really cool. But regardless, that's Kartana. Really cool Pokemon. I absolutely love this thing. I'm really looking forward to using it in draft and seeing how well it performs. And yeah, Kartana. Cool mon. Now, with that mon being out of the way, we're going to move on to our third round pick, which we were able to pick up right after Alex made his two picks. Alex was number 1 in the draft. And this third pick is an interesting one. A mon that people absolutely loved when it first came out, or loved or hated. And now it's dropped off a little bit in popularity just because people are finding good ways around it. This mon I think a lot of people are not going to consider as good in draft format as it is in standard, but I still think it's very good in both. And it definitely fits some roles that I like having on my team, and that mon is none other than Toxapex. Now, not only does this mon support these two very well, because this thing's weak to Psychic, these two guys resist Psychic, obviously. This guy's weak to Fighting, this guy is weak to Steel. Toxapex resists both of those, which is really nice. Not only does it do that, but this is just an insanely bulky Pokemon. It's the big thing that I picked it up for, as well as obviously its other good things, is Toxic Spikes, because if you've watched my if you've seen my league teams from previous seasons of basically anything, I love to have Hazard Stack, I love to have Toxic Spikes, and Toxapex is a really good T-Spike setter. And just the fact that it's so bulky, like it's very difficult to knock this thing out in one hit, and I'm almost guaranteed to get up a Toxic Spike. And even if you come close to knocking me out in one hit, I just switch out and get Regenerator on you, and that's really nice. Also, being a poison type, it can absorb Toxic Spikes that are on my side of the field, which is really nice. And again, this thing is just absolutely insanely bulky. It has a relatively poor HP stat in 50, but then you look at its defenses and it's absolutely insane. 152, 142. You can run physically defensive on this thing, like the standard OU spread. You can run specially defensive. You can run mixed happily. It can take on so many different hits. Unstab hidden powers are not going to 2-KO you basically ever. And again, because of Regenerator, this is one of those mons, kind of like Alamamola, kind of like Tangrowth, you can just send into attack blindly, scout the damage to see what type of item they are. If it's like a Wild Charge or something, you'll see that they're going to take Recoil. You can switch out, get your health back into the appropriate counter, and then just move on from there. Also, of course, what's nice is even though it doesn't have a very good special attack stat, obviously it's at 53 and its attack is barely any better and it doesn't get any coverage for it. It does have a decent enough move pool to make it not setup fodder. Like, it has Scald, obviously, which can snag burns on things. It has Ice Beam to hit certain things. Obviously, Poison coverage to deal with fairies, as well as a couple other things. Does have Poison Jab. Does have access to instant recovery, which is really nice. I like Alamamola because it's a really good Wish Passer, but I also like this thing because it has instant recovery. I can just click Recover and get myself healthy again, which is very, very nice. Also has 100% accurate Toxic, which is really nice. It has a unique move in Baneful Bunker, which I don't think is that good, but could definitely come in handy in certain matchups, like if you know your opponent's going for a U-turn. Basically, it's like Protect, but on contact, you poison your opponent, which can definitely come in handy, like I said, but I don't think it's necessarily that good, especially if I have something like Toxic Spikes up. It's not going to be very helpful unless it's a flying type using U-turn. And yeah, that's about all that it can do, but again, it's very, very solid. It's so bulky, so ridiculously bulky, and it's a great Toxic Spike setter, and it's just a great switch into hits on both sides, physical or special, and it's just amazing. It also has another ability that's pretty cool in Merciless. What Merciless does is this Pokemon's attacks are always critical hits if the target is poisoned. Don't know if I'm going to ever use that, but it's definitely there if I want to run like a more offensive Toxapex. I don't think I'm going to, because Regenerator is just too good. It's kind of like the Slow Burst situation where, like, Oblivious is a great ability so that you can't be taunted, but Regenerator is just too good to pass up on. So yeah, there's that thing. It's also a very good Rocky Helmet user, obviously. You switch it to hits, you don't necessarily need leftovers because you do have natural regeneration in Regenerator. And of course it is a very good Black Sludge user as well. And also a big one, another thing that doesn't make this thing setup fodder most of the time is it gets access to Haze, which is great because you can eliminate all stat changes. Obviously, I have to be very careful of submons, but I do have, the things that are going to want to set up a sub on me the most are bulky Psychic types, and I do have two things that can kind of take them on relatively well. Like, I have Tapu Lele, which resists and hits them back with a very powerful Shadow Ball, and I do have Kartana, which can resist and fire back with very powerful attacks as well, including super effective Night Slash if I want to run that. So that's Toxapex, really cool mon, super, super bulky. I think it supports my first two very well, and I think it supports the rest of the team going from here. So with that being said, let us now get down to the fourth mon of the draft. Once again, I had to wait a while for this one, but it did come back to me, and I was very glad that it came back to me. This mon is going to be one that has been around since Gen 6, however, it's a mon that I never really used, and it's a mon that got pretty significantly buffed just because of one move, and that mon is going to be Zygarde. Now, Zygarde 50%, by the way. Power Construct is banned, as should be expected, because it is ridiculous. Don't ever allow that, especially, like, if you're going to allow Tapu Lele, okay, I can kind of understand that, because it's new and it's fun. Do not allow Power Construct. Just don't. Please, just do not allow Power Construct. But regardless, Zygarde got a really cool new toy to play with, and that is 1,000 Arrows. It also gets 1,000 Waves. That can be useful in certain situations, but 1,000 Arrows is the big one. Basically, it's like Earthquake. It's a little bit weaker, but the big thing about it is grounds adjacent foes first hit neutral on flying types. And that is so, so important for Zygarde. So things like Skarmory, Celesteela, any flying type, like Lando T, any flying type at all that would want to switch in on this thing because it's obviously immune to the Earthquake and can take its other hits, now can no longer necessarily do so. With 1,000 Arrows is basically, assuming your opponent doesn't have like a very bulky grass type or something that resists ground, you just don't have a great counter to this thing. Everything is going to be hit by this. There's nothing immune to 1,000 Arrows. And there are very few things that actually want to switch in on a powerful 1,000 Arrows because, like I said, the bulky flying steel types like Celesteela and Skarmory, they take that hit neutrally and then they're smacked down, so they'll take the next hit super effectively. And with Zygarde's bulk, they're not doing a lot of damage to it back. Like, this thing has insane bulk. 108 HP is incredible. It goes up to 420 There's a joke in there somewhere. 121 defense, which is already really naturally good, and 95 SPDF, which is really nice. And not only that, but it gets access to a really good move in Coil, which boosts your attack, defense, and accuracy by 1. Obviously, the attack and defense are the big ones, but accuracy is cool if you're like a random focus sash set or something like that. But yeah, this thing is just super, super good. And it doesn't necessarily rely on priority, but it does have basically the best form of priority in extreme speed, which can always be really nice. Also, if you want to boost this thing's speed, it gets access to Dragon Dance, so it has really good options there. And also obviously has Dragon Stab. Unfortunately, it does not get Dragon Claw because it doesn't have hands or claws, but it does get the more powerful attack and Outrage, which obviously has its drawback in confusing you after 2 to 3 turns, but it still is very, very strong and can come in handy in some situations. It also has usable special attack. It doesn't have too many special moves. It has Core Enforcer, which looks awesome on Wi-Fi and on Showdown, but it's just not that useful. Nullifies the foe's ability if the target moves first, which you can do, but like again, its special attack is not that great, so it sucks. You can run like a bulky Coil, like Rest Hog Dragon Tail set if your opponent doesn't have a fairy. That can be really annoying for some people to deal with. It does get access to Focus Blast, though that's not super useful. Glare is a really cool one if you just want to run like a support Zygarde. You can run something like Glare. Haze as well to get rid of your opponent's statuses. Grass Knot. Pain Split, which I didn't even know until like very recently, which is weird because I've never seen it, but I'm sure there's a use for it in there somewhere. Sludge Wave if you want to hit fairies. I know it gets Iron Tail as well. Rock Slide. Stone Edge. Superpower. Zen Headbutt. And a couple other moves down here. Obviously, whatever hidden power you want to run, there's Iron Tail. Lamb's Wrath is something you should never run, even though it probably looks really cool. And yeah, that's basically Zygarde. I love this thing. It's so ridiculously bulky. It's so scary to deal with. It was scary to deal with previously. Like, its bulk was good enough to the point where Vaporeon's Scald would not be able to break its sub. It's also a very good sub user in case you guys haven't seen this thing being used, but just the fact that it gets 1,000 arrows now makes it so much better. Having that coverage move there, or having that move there to basically eliminate the need for almost every other coverage move is just so useful. And even if my opponent does have like a bulky grass type, Toxapex sets up T-Spikes on it or hits it with a Sludge Bomb. Kartana can take the grass hits quad resisted and hit it very hard with like an X-Scissor or like a Smart Strike or something like that. And Tapu Lele just doesn't care about anything. So my team so far really supports this Pokemon. I also felt like I could use a little bit of obviously these two things can set up here, but they don't need the setup. They can run like Scarf, Band, Life Orb, Specs, whatever, and still do damage, even though they can set up. Zygarde is kind of similar in that way. I can run like a Soft Sand or a Life Orb or a Choice Band or something along those lines and hit things very hard, but it also has the option to set up. And I think the setup set on this thing is its best set. Like Coil, Dragon Dance, even like Coil and Dragon Dance together are really good if you don't need 1,000 arrows, or if you want to run like Coil DD, 1,000 arrows E-Speed, 1,000 arrows sub, Coil DD, whatever. It's got a bunch of really good sets. Its setup is really good. It hits relatively hard at base 100, even though you're typically going to be investing in bulk. Again, it's so bulky that so many things are not going to break its sub. Life Orb Ice Beam from Greninja does not have a guaranteed chance to knock this thing out. That's how bulky it is. It just takes hits for days, and it hits back very hard, and it hits back with a move that will hit everything. There's nothing immune to 1,000 arrows, and that is just absolutely incredible for it. So that's Zygarde. Like I said, a little bit of an older Mon, a little bit of a past generation Mon, but it does get a new toy, and that new toy makes it so much better. Alright, so with Zygarde being out of the way, let's move on to the next Mon that we decided to pick up. And this is the Mon that's actually, I wasn't really expecting to get back to me, but it makes sense since a lot of people were focusing on all the new toys and all the new stuff that they wanted to pick up early before anyone else took them. And I was looking through some of the Mons that I wanted, and I noticed this thing was still there. And this fits my team basically perfectly. Like, I couldn't have asked for a better Pokemon at this point in time. Like, looking back, there's absolutely nothing I would have traded this Pokemon in for. And that Pokemon is Weavile. So, Weavile round 5 is really good. You usually see, or in Gen 6, you saw Weavile go in the first 3 rounds. And I'm able to pick it up round 5 on an already really good offensive team. And it supports my team really well, just with fast knockoff, as well as pursuit, and it just helps me so much. Pursuit especially, like I said, there are some bulky psychics that can kind of wall Tapu Lele. If I wanted to, I can just switch into Weavile. Not necessarily switch in because I don't want to take like a T-Wave or a Status or an HP fighting, but I will be able to be immune to the psychic attack and then fire off a Pursuit as they switch out, which is really nice. It's also a Mon, and this is kind of an important one as well. Tapu Lele blocks priority. Weavile does have that priority Ice Shard, but what's really nice is opposing Pokemon cannot use their priority against Weavile while Psychic Terrain is up, so once again, I am immune to Bullet Punch, I am immune to Extreme Speed, I am immune to Aqua Jet, Mach Punch, which is 4 times effective. Anything like that, I am just immune to, and they will not be able to do anything to me, which is really nice. Even if they have priority of their own, they're not going to be able to use it, and the odds are that I am faster than them, because Weavile is extremely fast with 125 speed. That's just really good. It was a very good Mon in Gen 6, it's a very good Mon in Gen 7, and it's going to even be helped a little bit by the fact that I do have Psychic Terrain. There are definitely going to be situations where I would like to not have the Psychic Terrain up so I can click Ice Shard against some of my opposing Pokemon, or some of my opponent's Pokemon rather. Like if there's a Scarfed Garchomp or Flygon or something like that in front of me and I want to be able to click Ice Shard and I can't, that'll be unfortunate, but I definitely can play around that. And again, Weavile is just so good on its own. It supports the team, and the team supports it, but it's just so good on its own. Like, it's a relatively straightforward Mon again. Like, Life Orb, Knockoff, Icicle Crash, Ice Shard, Pursuit, Low Kick, Poison Jab, maybe a Swords Dance variant in there somewhere. So it's really good on its own. I don't have to go into too much detail about this thing. It's really good. I think you guys understand that. It's so good. It hits really hard. It has decent Spadef. Has the Psychic immunity that's really nice. It pairs very well with Toxapex as well, because Toxapex does not like bulky Psychic types. And also Zygarde kind of likes it as well, because there are some Psychic types that get Ice Beam, as well as, well, I mean, everything gets in Power Ice, but there are a lot of Psychic types that get Ice Beam, which is kind of nice, like Mew, Mesprit, Cresselia, things like that. And Weavile can have a set to possibly beat them, which is very, very nice. So Weavile, just, again, like, it's really good. I don't have to go into too much detail on Weavile. It does what it does very well. It has Iron Tail in order to hit certain things like Diancie, even though none of them were drafted. It has the Iron Tail to hit Fairies a little bit harder, has Poison Jab, has Swords Dance. Pursuit's really nice. Again, I don't expect to do anything too fancy with this thing. Standard set is probably its best set, and I expect to be using that very well throughout the season. And again, this thing just supports my team so well. Like, the offensive core between Tapu Lele, Kartana, Zygarde, and Weavile is insane. Plus Toxapex to soak up the hits that these guys don't want to take is just really, really nice. So that's Weavile for you. I'm not going to cover it in too much more detail. And now we have another old friend coming back. Not an old friend from my teams, but an old friend from previous generations. This is also a very, very good Mon. But once again, I was very surprised to get this late, but I'm very happy I was able to pick it up because it fits the team very well. I don't know if you guys know this, but I like to have a lot of hazards on my team. You guys should know that because I mentioned it earlier, but I like to have all forms of hazards. Except for sometimes Sticky Web. I don't necessarily prioritize Sticky Web, but I like to have Rocks, like to have Spikes, like to have T-Spikes. As you can see, I'm actually missing 2 of those. I have nothing that gets Spikes, and I have nothing that gets Rocks. So I was looking for that. I was also looking for an Earthquake resistance or immunity because I don't have any of those. Like, Zygarde's bulky, but it doesn't necessarily want to switch in on a powerful Earthquake. Same thing with Kartana. So I needed something to do with Earthquake. And this was basically, again, like the perfect Mon that I could have picked for this situation because it filled all of those roles perfectly. This gives me another Defogger. This gives me a Mon that synergizes very well with Toxapex, and that Mon is Skarmory. So Skarmory, again, I probably don't have to go over in too much detail, but Skarmory supports this team very nicely. Like I said, with hazards, it's going to be very nice. Hazard stack is very much appreciated by Weavile, by things like Scarf Tapu Lele, by things like Kartana, even Zygarde to an extent, so that uninvested 1,000 arrows can get 2 Akios that it wouldn't be able to without the hazards. Sturdy, great ability, obviously. I can use this thing as a suicide lead if I want to. It also gets access to Defog, and this is a Defogger that is not affected by webs, which is nice, or by spikes. And also, of course, takes rocks neutrally, so very successful Defogger in that aspect. Does get stab moves in Brave Bird as well as Iron Head, which aren't going to hit too hard, but Brave Bird, obviously, after I get up hazards, and if I'm a stab set, I can kill myself and prevent my opponent from defogging or rapid spinning, which is really nice. Like I said, I love having rocks and I love having spikes, and this thing gets access to both. as you can see here, Stealth Rock, and then there are Spikes, which is really nice. Also has access to Instant Recovery and Roost. Also has access to Phasing and Whirlwind, which is also really, really nice to have with Hazard Stack, just to phase things around, get more chip damage on them with the hazards. Has Counter as a little bit more of a gimmick option, but can definitely work. Take a strong physical hit, counter, knock my opponent out. Of course, that's very, very nice. Does get Pursuit. Don't expect to use Pursuit on it, but it is there. Same thing with Rock Slide, Roar as well, in case I don't want to run Whirlwind for some reason. Can set up the Tailwind, and I'm not the biggest fan of Tailwind in singles, but if I do find the opportunity to use it, Tailwind plus like a Specs Tapu Lele is gonna really hurt, and I feel bad for whoever that works against, but that is there, and it is a pretty cool option. Other than that, we know what Skarmory does. It's really, really bulky. 65 HP, 140 defense. I can build it Fizz Def, and it's just not going to die to any physical hits ever. Build it Spadef, and it'll be take on a plethora of different things, while still being able to take on... It'll take on a plethora of special threats, while still being able to take on the physical threats with this massive natural defense stat. So, Skarmory just fits the team really, really well. It's super bulky, sets up hazards, defogs, does everything I need it to do. Basically everything the team was missing at this point. I do want to add upon this, but this 6 right here, I could not be happier about. This is amazing right here. I absolutely love it, and I would not trade this in for anything, basically. So, that's the team so far. However, of course, we do still have 4 more mobs, and we have to pick out our Z-move user, which will be coming shortly. So, with that being said, let's move on to the next 4. And to start off the final 4, I decided I wanted another electric community. Obviously, I do have Zygarde, which is very nice, but it's 4 times weak to Hidden Power Ice, which I don't want, because even though it's very bulky, I will be 2-hit KO'd by most Hidden Power Ices from offensive electric types. I also do have Kartana, but Kartana is not taking any special hits ever. Like, I'm never switching that thing in on a predicted Thunderbolt, Volt Switch, even a Hidden Power, or whatever. I need that thing to be healthy, and again, it has terrible Spadef, and I don't want it to take that hit. So I wanted another Electric Resist. I also wanted another Earthquake immunity, because those are very important, especially with my team of like Toxapex and not many other resistances other than obviously Skarmory being immune. So I wanted something that was up in the air. I also wanted my electric type at this point, and I was thinking at I was looking at Electros, which is pretty good. I think Thundy T got taken relatively soon before me. I know Zapdos was available, but I know Zapdos was not available, or else I totally would have nabbed that, but I wanted something that could also kind of take on water hits, because I don't have too many water immunities. I don't have any water immunities. I don't have too many water resistances, and usually I like to get a Scald immunity on my team, like something with Water Absorb or Storm Drain or something along those lines, but with Scald being nerfed to only doing 6% damage on each turn, I didn't find it as necessary. I would rather prioritize other things. So I was fine with just getting another resistance, and I was fine with getting something that was just up in the air. So I actually decided to go with Rotom Mow, and this is a very cool Pokemon. Again, older friend, but regardless, I can't get like a full team of new Pokemon. I could, but I don't think it would be the best, especially because other people were prioritizing the Normons as well. But Rotom Mow is a very good Volt Switch user. With 86 speed, I can be a slow pivot, or I can be an offensive, fast offensive Volt Switcher with like a Choice Scarf or a Choice Specs or something along those lines. Leaf Storm is also really nice to have, even though I do have Kartana as my grass type. Special grass coverage can be very nice. And Leaf Storm is basically a Draco Meteor. It has the same power as Draco Meteor, lowers the special attack by 2, 105 special attacks. That is very nice, especially coming off of a Choice Specs, or even like a Life Orb or something along those lines. The Rotoms are all very versatile. The Rotoms are all good in their own rights, except for maybe Rotom Frost, but Rotom Mow is definitely among them. Rotom Mow is very nice. Thunderbolt, Volt Switch, obviously it has access to things like Hex and Shadow Ball if I want to hit certain Ghost types or certain bulky Psychic types. It does have access to Pain Split, which is very nice. Signal Beam, I don't know when I'm ever going to use that. Dual Screens are definitely an option. I can set up dual screens with this thing and have an easier time setting up with my Zygarde or my Kartana or my Tapu Lele, something along those lines. It does get Sucker Punch, which is cool, but Sucker Punch was nerfed, and Sucker Punch on Rotom is not that common. People have used it, has worked before, but it's not super common, it's not amazing. Do also have Thunder Wave as an option as well. Once again, also nerfed, but still very, very good, and can still win you games in certain matchups. Very good trick user as well, because you can switch into whatever, or something will want to switch into Rotom Mow, whether that be like a good bulky Steel or a good bulky like ground type with the secondary typing that is not weak to grass. They want to switch in on you, but you can trick them and give them a choice item that they don't necessarily want, which can always be very nice. Like I said, very good Will-O-Wisp user as well, burn the counters. burn your opponent's counter to this thing, which is very nice. And then of course it has some other options as well. Psych Up, I believe some people have used in the past, and it's been really cool. Obviously whatever hidden power it wants to get. And then, yeah, that's about it for Rotom Mow. Again, relatively well-known mon, so I don't have to go into it too much into detail, but it's a mon that fit the team very nicely. Good Volt Switcher, like I said, can gain me momentum, whether it be slow or fast momentum. Can take hits very nicely as well. Like I said, it can switch into Scald, Surfs, Hydro Pumps, Waterfalls, whatever it may be. Has obviously very good natural bulk. All Rotom forms do, other than regular Rotom, which even then is not necessarily frail. And obviously this one has boosted stats. So Rotom Mow, really cool Pokemon, very good on this team, I think at least, very good for the Volt Switch. And again, like I need an electric type, and I felt like this one fit the best out of the ones remaining. So that's Rotom Mow for you. We're going to move on to another mon that I didn't expect to be there, but it's there, and I was not going to complain at all. I like to have multiple Stealth Rockers on my team so that one mon is not locked into having rocks. And I do like to have rocks on most of my teams. That being said, I also just wanted a Wall Breaker, and this mon is very good at that. I wanted another one. I wanted another piece to my already very good offensive core. I didn't have a fighting type at this point, and even though I have used this mon before, it was there, and it's just way too good to pass up, and I'm just going to take Terrakion. So Terrakion is an absolute monster. Its dual stat in Fighting and Rock is very unique, and it's so good. There are so many teams that are 2-KO'd or O-KO'd by just Close Combat and Stone Edge. It's so good. It also has ways to hit Fairies in Poison Jab and Iron Head. It's a very good Stealth Rock user. Also could use this as a suicide lead with Stealth Rocks and a very fast Taunt. Its special attack stat is good enough to use a hidden power if I want to, even though I won't necessarily want to. Also, very good thing about this thing, very good setup sweeper. It gets access to Rock Polish as well as Swords Dance, which can come in handy in a lot of different situations. Like if I can bluff a choice item well enough, I can force my opponent to switch, go for an SD, go for a Rock Polish, and then possibly sweep through my opponent's team. Also, Terrakion has very good natural bulk, so if I want to set up in front of something that I can take a hit from, I will happily do so. I'll set up my Rock Polish, set up my Swords Dance, and then continue to sweep through my opponent's team. It's so good. It's not a one-trick pony. It does it, like, if I can bring, like, Scarf or Bandit every week and it would do fine, but it can do a lot of different things, and that's something I absolutely love about this thing. Gets Earthquake as well, obviously. Like I said, Iron Head and Poison Jab to hit Fairies. Gets Priority Quick Attack. Not the most common, but if I see fit, I will be able to use that. And yeah, X-Scissor and Zen Headbutt. Zen Headbutt can be very useful if I'm facing, like, a bulky Poison type or something along those lines that Stone Edge does not hit as hard, and then I have X-Scissor as well to hit some things like Celebi or bulky Psychic types, which is really nice. And then we got some fancier stuff down here that I don't really expect to be using, but Terrakion's just so good. If you watched my PPL season, the last one that just ended, you know how much I love this thing, and this thing is just so good. As long as it hits the Stone Edges, you know, as long as we don't have another Sand incident, but regardless of that, it's still so good. It gives me my second Stealth Rocker. I like to have 3, but I'm fine with 2. And it's just an offensive powerhouse, and it fits my team so nicely. Like, Tapu Lele and Kartana are kind of sometimes walled by Steel types, and Terrakion, even though it can't hard switch in on a lot of them, it's going to immediately force them out with a close combat, and it's going to force something to take a lot of damage. And that's just Terrakion for you. It's so good. I love this thing to death. I could go on all day about it, but unfortunately I cannot, because we have to move on to the next Pokemon. And the next mon that I decided to use, or I decided to pick up, is basically the completion to the Wall Core. I don't have that many bulky Pokemon right now. I have Toxapex, I have Skarmory, and I kind of have Zygarde as my bulky Pokemon. Even Zygarde's not necessarily a wall, it's just a very bulky setup sweeper. But this mon, I may have some type weaknesses on this team, but this mon does not care about any team's type weaknesses, because this mon basically resists everything, and this is a mon I've been looking to use for a while, and I just haven't really been able to because I needed to fill my team with other slots. But this mon is exactly what I'm looking for on this team. It's T-Wave support for my slower offensive mons. It is very good status inflictor. It's not passive whatsoever. It's insanely bulky. It has a great move pool, and it has great utility options, and the mon we picked up is Porygon 2. Now, Porygon 2, paired with Skarmory and Toxapex, is basically all that I need, like, for a wall core, like, forever. The only thing that doesn't resist that I can notably think of, the two things that I think it doesn't resist that I can notably think of are, like, Dark and Electric, as well as Ghost as well, but again, Porygon 2 just basically resists everything. Like, pretend instead of normal, it was just resist. That's its typing. Its typing is resist. Porygon 2 is so good. I know Shoddy absolutely loves this thing. There are a lot of people who really like this thing. I am one of them. Stab Tri-Attack is always really good. Have a 20% chance to inflict a random status effect, plus its base 80 power. Gets access to Bolt Beam. Obviously, Ice Beam, Thunderbolt, also very, very good. Has access to, once again, instant recovery in Recover. Has access to great abilities in Trace, Download, and Analytic. Analytic is very good in an offensive variant, as well as Download. These are all good on basically any variant, but Analytic, 1.3 times power if I'm to move last, with the 60 speed stat, that will be happening often. I will be slower than most of my opponent's Pokemon. That's really nice. As you can see, these stats are already really good, like 85, 90, 95. Throw on in a Violate, you're just never dying. Obviously, you're losing on the leftovers recovery, which kind of sucks, but again, this thing just switches into so many hits. There are very few things that can 2-hit KO this thing. Even things that are super effective, sometimes Porygon 2 just does not care. And by hitting these super effectively, it has to be a fighting type. And in order to deal with fighting types, I have things like Toxapex, I have things like Skarmory, I have things like Tapu Lele. I am fine in dealing with fighting types. Porygon 2 is a perfect addition to my wall core right now. There are so many different things this thing can do. It has access to Trick Room as well, which is really nice. Foul Play if I want to go that route. Magic-Coat if I want to deter Taunt or Hazards. Psychic if I want to hit certain fighting types. Shadow Ball to hit Ghost types, obviously. Like I said, Thunder Wave and Toxic, very good status inflictor. So good. Just, it's disgusting how good this thing is. Every time my opponent has a P2, I never think about dealing damage to it offensively. I'm always thinking about, okay, I have to status it, I have to taunt it, I have to knock it off. And once again, similar to when I had Mew, people are going to want to knock that thing off. I have a Porygon 2, people are going to knock that thing off, and I have a Terrakion to not only switch into, but also to put the thought in my opponent's head, okay, I can go for knockoff, but I run the risk of giving Terrakion an attack raise, which people do not want to do, because even at neutral, this thing 2-hit KOs a lot. Make it a +1, you're going to be in for a lot of pain. So, I'll give you 31 attack, there you go. So, very good combination over here. And again, Porygon 2 just fits the wall core so perfectly. Porygon 2, Toxapex, Skarmory, people are going to have a very hard time breaking through that, I think. I think that's just so difficult for people to deal with. They're not all and Toxapex is kind of passive, but Toxapex has Haze, Skarmory has Whirlwind, and Porygon 2 just has the power and the move pool that it needs to not be set up fodder. So that's Porygon 2. Beautiful addition to the team, especially as the second to last pick. But with that being said, we are actually going to move on to the very last pick of the draft. And I was thinking about this pick for a very long time. I wanted a Ghost type, but I also kind of wanted another Ground type so that Zygarde's not stuck being my Volt Switch in. But I didn't know exactly what to get. And I was looking at it for a very long time. I was thinking, you know, I haven't picked up a new Pokemon in a while, you know, a Gen 7 Pokemon in a while. Why don't we get this? It fits basically everything that I needed. It's a spin blocker as well, which I have always wanted to get because spin blocking is very important to me, especially if I'm hazard stacking. I want to be able to switch into Rapid Spin and not have to let my opponent get rid of hazards. And the mon I decided to pick up at the end was Palossand. And Palosand's a pretty cool Pokemon. Sandville, cool ability, but not very useful unless my opponent has like a T-Tar or something like that and I want to be evasive. Water Compaction, also pretty cool. I learned somewhat recently that this thing is not immune to water type attacks. I thought it was for a little while, and I was like, wow, this thing's the best thing ever. Why is nobody freaking out over this? But regardless, it's still okay. This Pokemon's defense is raised 2 stages after it is damaged by a water type move, so it still takes the hit super effectively, and it'll still hurt, but then you get your defense raised by 2, so in some situations that can really help. Like if you're taking like a weaker Scald or like a weaker Waterfall or something along those lines, you can take the hit, get +2 defense, and just boost, obviously, your longevity, which is really nice. Not very bulky, but relatively bulky. 85 HP, 75 Split F, that's better than Gliscor. And then 110 defense is also very solid. And it doesn't have a quad weakness, which is nice. There's no hidden power to necessarily to KO this thing. And it's not passive. 100 special attack is kind of nice. 75 is okay as well, but 100 special attack, And it has a pretty good move coverage. It has a pretty good move pool, rather. It has Earth Power and Shadow Ball for dual stab, which is nice. It has Sludge Bomb to hit grass types and fairies, which is really, really nice. It has Giga Drain as well as Energy Ball to hit bulky waters, or water types in general. Has Destiny Bond as a little bit of a gimmick option, which is cool. Has Psychic, Rock Slide, Stone Edge. Toxic is always an option as well. It can run Rock Polish. It has very slow speed, very low speed, 35. So I don't know if I don't necessarily want to run that, but it is there. And another thing that this thing gets is a new recovery move in Shore Up. So it's a move that heals the user by a weather-dependent amount, which is usually irrelevant, because I'm not exactly sure how like the weather affects it. I don't know if like rain helps it and like sand hurts it or sun hurts it or whatever. But Shore Up restores 50% of your HP most of the time, assuming there's no weather, which usually there won't be. And yeah, it's cool. Like it's there. It's not amazing, but it filled the holes that I needed it to fill, and I think I can make it work. It's got some cool options. It's a good switch into a lot of electric types. Like if I build it split F, Hidden Power Ice is not going to 2-hit KO me. It has ways to hit the water types and grass types that may want to switch into me, which is nice. It's cool. It's a cool guy, and it's also literally just a sandcastle. And this is better than any sandcastle I ever could have made as a kid, so I'm gonna live vicariously through Palo Sand for my failed childhood dreams. But with that being said, that's the team. Although I do have to reveal my Z-move Pokemon. And I was thinking about it for a while. I know Tapu Lele obviously gets a very good Z-move, and it's Guardian whatever the hell. That does like 75% damage to anything that wants to switch in. But Tapu Lele does basically that amount of damage with its coverage moves anyway, so I didn't want to do that. It could be useful on Kartana, could get like a stronger dark move out of it or a stronger fighting move onto it and do a lot of damage that way. Zygarde I guess would be cool on Weavile's okay, Skarmory not very useful. Maybe Rotom, Terrakion, but the Mon that I actually decided to put my Z-move slot onto is Porygon 2. And you may be thinking that I'm insane, and you're correct, but also, I just want you to think about this for a little bit. Suppose I have normal EMZ, and then I run the conversion set. Okay, good. And then let's say I'm like an electric type, with like Thunderbolt, Volt Beam, that hits a lot of teams. I convert, first of all, the way you get rid of P2, you knock it off. You make it a little bit more frail so that you can 2 a KO with certain things. You can't knock off a Z Crystal. It stays on you, so your opponent basically wastes a turn going for knockoff. It's not going to be doing that much damage because it's lower power. You can't knock it off. I also, then, after going for the conversion, become an electric type, which also gives me only 1 weakness in ground. Even though I had 1 weakness in fighting, I'm now only weak to ground, and I have a Skarmory, so I don't care about that. Then my stats all raise, so my special attack raises. If I'm download, I could be +2, which is also really nice. I get Stab Thunderbolt, and again I just have +1 special attack when I have a 105 special attack stat already. My defense is raised, so I'm just as bulky if I had the Eviolite. And what are you going to do then in the right situation? Like, you can't knock me off, which is what people want to do to Porygon 2. You can attempt to taunt me, which is correct, but I can possibly play around that. I have other offensive Mons I can switch into, and if I switch a very strong offensive Mon into a taunt, and it's like a Choice Banded Kartana, you're not going to have a very fun time. And nobody expects conversion on a Porygon 2. And again, like, you can't knock it off. That's how you deal with Porygon 2. You status it, or you go for knockoff on it. And if I have a normal EMZ with conversion, you can't knock it off. I click conversion, and then you're in a very bad situation. Becoming an electric type can also be a very useful thing, because again, I'm not taking, or I'm only weak to ground. It's really nice. I don't have many resistances, but again, I'm only weak to ground, and Porygon 2 is bulky enough to where taking things neutrally is basically resist. I have great ability, so again, if I download a special attack raise, I'm at +2 special attack with 105, and that even uninvested is very, very nice. I even could invest a little bit and make it even better. And again, I'm gaining the bulk that I would have had if I was a Violet anyway, and obviously it's one-time use, but that means that one-time use, unless I decide I want to switch out, is there to stay. They can't knock off my boosts unless they have haste or something like that. So this could actually be really, really cool. I don't know how often I'll use it. Z moves still kind of confuse me, still kind of scare me. But this could definitely be really cool. As I'm sure you guys know how ridiculous Z conversion Porygon Z is, because that thing is absolutely absurd and really good offensively and then really bulky. Imagine that on Porygon Z, but I'm way bulkier, a little bit less strong, admittedly, a little bit less strong, but way bulkier with access to recovery. And yeah, that's about it. But I think this has the potential to be really good. I don't know. I couldn't decide on the other mons. Like, I don't see anything that's super useful. I do a ton of damage with a lot of them anyway. I don't know of any extra coverage that I could have given them that a Z move would be helpful for on a lot of them. So why not try out Z conversion Porygon too? It could be really cool. I can even become like a ghost type as somebody goes for a close combat. And then I have all my stats boosted and I'm a ghost type. I'm weak to knockoff, but I'm still not taking the boosted damage from it because they can't knock off my item. I just feel like this could be cool. I feel like this could be really, really cool, and I'm really looking forward to finding the matchup where this actually works. So that's going to be the video. Thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. I will be uploading the games that I play against my opponents. Week 1 is actually going to be against Shoddy, which is fun. Repeat of week 1 of the PPL, the Season 4. So that's going to be really cool. I'll have a team builder, have the game uploaded for that. Without further ado, have a nice day everyone, and I will see you in the next video.